welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about the first season of The Magicians, based off of the books by Lev Grossman, which is the Magicians series. I don't think it's called anything else. It's a trilogy of books, and I reviewed all the books on my channel, separately. I think the last video is not out yet, but it will be coming probably towards the beginning of end of January, early February. But anyway, I finished pretty much just the first season. I got into the second season a little bit, but the first season was kind of an interesting experience, and I just kind of wanted to make a video about it. It follows the books very, very loosely. It kind of took some aspects of the first one, some aspects of the second one, and smushed it into one season. So I don't know when it came to like the process of, getting the rights to the books, and then how many seasons that they were told that they were going to have. Like, I don't know if they were only told that they were going to have like 2 or 3 seasons. But I'm thinking if they were going to have 3 seasons, they would have just done each individual book per season. So I'm wondering if they maybe were told that they were going to have 2, and then they got extended into a higher amount. But some of the big things that were changed was that Quentin and Alice's relationship is a lot better in the show. So this is like one thing I do kind of give the show a lot of credit for, is the factor of, they did improve their relationship. This was a criticism I had with the first book, and then something happens to Alice in the end of the first book. I will try to loosely, I'll try not to go into spoiler territory too much. But I'm going to talk about things that are pretty much just, like, if you watch the first season of the show, I'm not going to get into too much book stuff. But something happens in the first book that doesn't happen in the show. As far as what I know, like I said, I only watched the first season. So, and their relationship is a lot better. So when Quentin does cheat on her, it is a little bit more impactful. Now, I think she forgives him a lot faster than she does in the books. And then you have a lot more of his friend from the outside world, and you have a lot less of her boyfriend. Let me pause this real quick. Hi, I'm back. I got the books right here just in case if I need to reference anybody's names. So Julia is a lot more of a character in the first season. She's not really in the first book at all. Like, she's mentioned, but she does become a major part of the show, and I do kind of like it in a way. I think her storyline is probably the most interesting. His storyline's kind of a typical, like, very clean cut, like, I learned magic the clean way. And it's interesting to the point where it's like we're learning through Quentin how the magic system works. Now, if you want more of the darker portion of it, I would say I like how Julia had to go through it. I feel for her, I really do, because she does go through so much. And I think how the show handles her character, and then, like, first, like, she goes through like the denial, like she gets denied from the school, and then she finds out, okay, there's this underground, and then she gets denied from the underground, and then she gets really into, you know, like she's raising like a goddess and everything else. And so she's interesting in that aspect of it. I do I do like Break Bells a little bit more when it comes to Elliot and Janet. I think it's Margot in the show, it's Janet in the books. Like, just having those two really increases the, why I like Break Bells so much, because their characters are a lot more fun. And then you have Poppy, and I did like his relationship with his girlfriend until she leaves, and then that kind of brought the show down a little bit because they were really interesting, and I do believe that they aged these characters up. So in the books, I think they're going high school to college, where they're already like they're going to like their master's program. So they're like, I would say, sorry guys, I would say they're like probably 21, 22 in the show, and they're probably 19 in the books, which is fine. I actually like that better because it, like, there is a lot of adult content in this show, and there's a lot of adult content in the books. But the books were written like way before, like the first, that's Magician's Land. The Magicians, like right here. This was written all the way back in 2009. So a lot of things that were okay in 2009 to write about and to have teens do probably wouldn't get passed as well today. And that's kind of the same thing with the show. So having these characters like in their early 20s like makes a lot more sense. And shows do that a lot. Like, shows will always age up their characters if they need to, mostly for content purposes. That's why there's a lot of characters in the Game of Thrones show that are a lot older than they are in the books because of the content of what their characters go through. So it's not something like I would down the show out at all. Like, I actually personally, I don't think we have enough fantasy shows that deal with like early 20s, even like late 20s, early 30s. Most of them are usually geared towards teens. So it's nice to have something that was written by an adult, being played by adult actors. And the acting is great. Like, everything that these characters go through, like, between the snippy dialogue and everything else, like, they did a really good job. And I think I was watching Buffy recently, which was made, I think the first season was like in the early 90s. And what they're able to do with the magic still looks good. And I think that's why I liked some of the other shows. Like, this is kind of around the same time. Like, Buffy's like earlier. But this is like the same time like the Vampire Diaries was coming out, like the originals, Arrow, like all those shows where today we would probably cringe because it definitely does look like there's green screen. But back then you could kind of get away with it and it still looked good. I still think it looks good. The magic was done extremely well. I think the magic looks better in this than it actually did in like the Wheel of Time show. I think it was beautifully done. I saw like kind of somebody going through like the sorry guys. Um like the background of it, and um they were talking about like it's like a dance, like to do like all the hand movements that they do. So like it was very thought out. Like everything was completely and totally thought out. I don't know like what the other seasons are gonna be like. I'm I'm hoping it's not gonna be a Game of Thrones thing where sorry guys, that they go past the material and then the quality is not great. Because I'm thinking, with as much as I've seen of the second season, we are now in fillery, so we're doing the second season. We are doing the fillery part of the second book. So we finished, and then we haven't even finished the first book yet because they didn't even graduate. They had like, so it's like a mixture of the two, and then it's like, okay, so and then supposedly Elliot can't leave and this and that. So I don't know what like this show's going to go towards. I'm hoping I think it's supposed to be moving. So the reason why I didn't like finish it is one, I'm you know going slowly through it cuz it's a little bit it's there's a little bit of cringe. It's kind of based off of like what my attention span is right now cuz I've been watching anime. And yes, anime is like sometimes can be like over 1,000 episodes, but when you're watching like an episode a week, especially with the animes like I'm caught up on, um, like I'm only dedicating 24 minutes of my time, even less than that because you have the intro, you have the exit, like so when you're talking about a whole 40 length show, sorry guys, like it's just I need more attention span and sometimes I just don't have it. And sometimes I just fall asleep. Sorry guys for yawning. Like it's been a long week, guys, and bear with me, please. But yeah, so it's a little harder for me to just get through these as much and I excuse me. So yeah, I'm I'm really excited to see the rest of it. I've seen a little bits and pieces here and there. I'm just hoping like I know some things that happened just because I saw a video reviewing the whole thing. Yeah, it's just um it's this whole thing of you know what it how this kind of goes into the thing of, and I'm gonna kind of go into this a little bit, like what makes a good adaptation of a source material. And I think when we look at something like Game of Thrones and when we look at something like The Magicians, which is loosely taking from a source material, taking the characters, taking personalities and stuff, taking concepts, and how do we compare that to like Game of Thrones, which is like almost word from word of what George R. R. Martin wrote. At least like when we talk about like the first like 4 seasons. Like I'm talking like peak Game of Thrones here. I'm not talking later down the line. I'm talking peak Game of Thrones versus The Magicians. And I think when we're looking at that, that works for something that, you know, we didn't know. Like, I don't know how many seasons that they're told or signed up for. This works better because you're getting the most out of your source material. So you're getting 2 books in 1 season and they were able to format it perfectly. So let's say that they were only allowed 2 seasons. So they could do, or 3 seasons. So they could do like everything in New York and the university in that first season, Fillory in the second, and then the like end of, like what book 3 gives you. And they would have enough room to tell that whole story if they were only allowed 3 seasons. So if they were told that and they still wanted to space it out so like everything's not totally rushed, I could see that. Like I could see doing that. Now, is it as good as like a Game of Thrones that's step by step? If you want that out of a show, I always know, like, when there's an adaptation of anything, things are going to get cut out. So I know things are going to get cut out. Like, I know you just hope that it's not, like, the important stuff. Because you've seen, like, we've all seen that movie where it's, like, the book's not even here. Like, they had the names, but the book's not even here. So I think, like, with readers that want a true adaptation, like, a Game of Thrones is peak. I don't always need that. I don't always want that. There are some books that I would love somebody to make an adaptation and cut things out. And be comfortable to cut things out. Because books in general are getting longer and longer and longer, and some of them deserve that page length. Yes, I'm going to go on this rant a little bit. Some of them deserve that page length. Like, Game of Thrones, to me, does deserve the amount of pages that it is. To get all of the characters and everything in there, it needs to all be there. And to make an adaptation, like, you need to make sure every single character's in there because everything fits together. Like, you need that. With this series, sometimes I'm like, can you please cut something out? Like, I felt like, especially with the third one, which is this one, the first fourth of this book, it just dragged. And then it's like, by the time we got to the end of it, I'm like, we could have been at that ending sooner. And we could have spent more time with the ending portion of this. We could have extended that, cut out and I'm not saying, like, cut out every boring thing that happens in a book. I'm not saying that. But there's parts of this that drag. And, like, the ending of this book is, like, what maybe fans have been wanting since the first book, with a character that I'm not going to talk about. And I wanted more time with that. I didn't want, a little bit of a spoiler, Quinnen loses his magic in the second one, becomes gets kicked out of Fillory, gets put as a professor in Break Bills, has, like, kind of a mental breakdown, gets kicked out of Break Bills, and then stuff happens. That's what the first fourth of this book is. I'm sorry. Hopefully that's not too much of a spoiler. But you have, like, it doesn't start getting good until, like, maybe, like, 200 pages into this. And it's the third book. So it's like, if you had somebody that read this book and was like, you know what the part I really like is the stuff after page 200. And that's where we start at. Like, we take, like, maybe 2 episodes with the whole Quinnen thing, getting kicked out of Fillory, and then, okay, and now we are at the end of it, and we are, running. And I think that, to me, is something that the show does really, really well, is that it takes the scenes. There's a scene in the marble. If you haven't read the books and if you've only seen the show, you probably don't understand what the marble. So the marble is something that I swear took like 40 pages of this lovely book. 40 pages of a 400-page book we spent on this marble. And the show cut it out. Thank you. Like, it doesn't... Like, and that's something, like, I think us as readers, we expect that slowness. And some of us really like that slowness. Like, there's some books, like, I just want to sit by a campfire with these characters and listen to them talk and stuff like that. Robin Hobb does a really good job of this, like Robert Jordan, like the old 90s authors, because I think all of them, do a really good job with this. And you're entertaining, and that's fine. It's not his specialty. He's better at the action-packed and quitty humor. And then it's like, I don't need 40 pages of people playing with a marble. I really don't. So once we got past that, I was, this was entertaining. But there's sections of like the books that I'm like, I'm okay. Like, they bring up the marble, they show the marble, and then they're done. I'm like, cool. And then when it came to the Beast, because he's like the big bad, I feel like they really rushed what it was. And, which was fine. I can understand why they didn't want to linger on what it's kind of it's an essay situation with one of the kids and the author of the Fillory books. And then he becomes the Beast. And I can understand being on the Sci-Fi Channel. I don't know what, like, I used to watch HBO when I was in, like, middle school, high school. So, stuff like that, I didn't really understand where, like, the line was for network television, because HBO doesn't have a line. Everything just goes, like, and then I would watch, like, Showtime and stuff, and, again, they don't have a line. Network television does. So when it comes to talking about that, I felt like the book did a better job, but at the same time, if you're somebody that is kind of affected by it, doesn't like to hear stories about it, the show just is like, okay, this happened. I think they take like one episode, is very kind of under the surface, and then done. And then we move on. And I think that for network television, fine. I definitely do talk about these books in my first 2 reviews about the psychological way that these books are written very, very well. There's scenes in the show, but I just don't think they got the psychological nature of these characters as well as what they are in the books. And then they added characters that kind of have a little bit more. They definitely do mention it. Like, they definitely do talk about how magic is an addiction. You don't learn magic without having some level of depression, and it is mentioned in the show as much as it is in the books, like, magic is an addiction. You're not gonna just be, part of the whole thing and, like, not feel a level of depression. So it's that whole thing too that kind of disappointed me with the show a little bit. Now, the show does lean into a lot more of the humor of it. It's still very, very dark. Like, it didn't go from, like, very, very dark Lev Grossman's book to very, very, like, humorous show. No, they still keep the dark, but they definitely lean a little bit more into the humor, and that's a little bit because you are on TV. I think humor translates a little bit better when you're hearing the dialogue. I don't, and this is something I have like with old satire, like books, that people say quote unquote are really funny. I have to usually listen to them because I don't always get the humor when I read it. Um I'm trying to think of like a really good example. And no, I don't think Ender's Game is supposed to be funny. I don't think I've read. I know there's a couple of Shakespeare that are supposed to be funny, and I did not think so. Oh, I read Emma in school, and yeah, that was, to me it was okay. It was it was all right. But I think when you see it acted out, now I just did not think it was funny. Like, it's just not my type of story. But when you see humor acted out in such a way, that can really improve the humor itself. And I think the show leaning into that actually works because the actors do such a good job with the humor. It's very quickie humor. It's very, it's very much one-liners, which I really like in my humor. I really like one-liners. Um, a lot of why I like George R. R. Martin's kind of humor. I know I'm mentioning him a lot. He's like my favorite author of all time, and I haven't talked a single ounce about Game of Thrones on this channel. But I will mention him a lot just because I do idolize him and stuff, and I think he is a really good author. But he's very good at one-liners. Like, Tyrion's humor is so good, and Peter Dinklage did such a good job with that character. Like, just ignore the fact that the last 2 seasons were nightmarish. Like, if you just like watch these actors' performances, they did fantastically. But anyway, and it's the same with this cast. Like, I think what was fun about this show that I have complaints about, um, when it comes to just how the entertainment industry works, is that I think we get too many well-known people and we expect them to fit in this tight box, and then, you know, they'll pick up something that's not in their box and it just does not work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But having a whole bunch of unknown people that just blew me away is fantastic. Now, I think some of the adults, because I recognize some of them from other things, have been in other things. But the kids were completely new. And I think that actually worked for the show's benefit. Not like having people that wanted to prove themselves. And yeah, it came out really well. Like, I think they did the characters really, really well. Um, Even some of them, like Quentin was less irritating in the show than he is in the books. Um, Alice is definitely a lot more sassy in the show than she is in the books. So if you like their relationship and that's kind of what you're watching it for, I wouldn't read the books. It's not as great. I would have said Quentin shouldn't have been with anybody in the books. I actually do believe in the show, like Alice and Quentin, based off of what I've seen, I do believe that they should end up together. Um and then they did make Elliot like, I would like to say he might be bi, um, just because of his relationship with Margot. Their relationship is a little bit different than his and Janet's. Um, that was a little bit more like Janet was just kind of whatever. Um, I think I can say bitch on YouTube. Yeah, she was bitchy. Um, so having Margot as a little bit more of an understanding character, I really did like Margot. Sorry, guys. I definitely did like Margot, um, a lot. Like, I think she goes through more and more as the series goes on. So probably by the time I get to see fifth season Margot, like I'm probably cheering her on. But her and Elliot's relationship is really good. And I think having more of like an iffy, like, okay, is he bi or is he gay, like, type of thing, fine. Like, I wasn't like, they definitely really do push Elliot being gay a lot more in the books. Like, he definitely has a lot more boyfriends in the books. He definitely has a lot more situations that he runs to in the books where, I mean, there's a threesome scene with them and Quinnen, and you could kind of tell, like, you know, he does both. So he might be bi in the show, which is fine. I, it's still what it is. I think it's fine to play with that type of stuff. Like, it doesn't need to be directly like whatever, they choose in the books. Like, the show can be different. And that's something, like, they think they changed in the show, because in the books he's definitely gay. Like, he's definitely 100% like into men, where he definitely has a weird relationship with Margot. Now, they do kind of explain it in the show where they took that test that, before they go to Antarctica, that truth and lie thing, and they were matched up, and that's why they have like such a close relationship. So maybe it's not like a relationship, but you can tell that they're definitely really close, and they've probably done things with each other. So, and that's like my thing with that. That I don't think is mentioned in the books. I don't know where that, like, yeah. And they did the Antarctica stuff really well. They did the fox scene really well. Them being silent really well. And they didn't drag it. Like, them being geese, oh my god. I was like, can we please move on? So, that's something that the show, I think, did really well, was they cut those lengthy things that we have to read that take forever, and they just cut it down. And that's completely fine. I would definitely suggest this show. Even if you are just watching it as a show, I think it's still a really good time. I think people will still enjoy it. I'm kind of, I don't know if it's just like the quality of writing recently, but I've been going backwards in my, like I said, I just started rewatching Buffy. And I kind of missed television during that time. The graphics were terrible. Like, if like CGI wasn't really there, like, and everything, but the writing was just so much fun. Like, and the storylines we got, and the subject matters we got to play with, and you know, and it came out super fast. I was watching a video about like it's taking 2 or 3 years for these TV shows to come in. Like nobody has time for that. Like, I'm over here waiting for Kingdom Hearts 4. I don't have time for that. But and then it's like you get less episodes and they're not great. Like the last show I think I really watched that I was following was Umbrella Academy, and that last season was terrible. Um the sun is not liking me today, guys. It's like you've been blabbering for 35 minutes and I need to go down. But that's just the whole thing is TV's is not what it used to be. Movies are not what it used to be. Um and it's just kind of disappointing. And it makes me want to go back to the old stuff. I liked the first season of House of the Dragon. I haven't seen the second one. Because people were starting to say like the second season's not as good as is going downhill, and I'm like, okay, I can't watch another Game of Thrones that's gonna go downhill. So, anyways, thank you for watching. If you want more content, like and subscribe. If you want to see my reviews of any of these books, they'll be on my channel. I might link them down below if I remember. But anyways, you guys have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you in a video coming real soon. Bye!